Viewing your life as a hero's journey. I'm just going to give you the Reader's Digest condensed version of this. I have a whole CD on this, but I just want to give you a little bit because this model adds so much mystery and fascination to life as well as courage during difficult times. How many of you know who Joseph Campbell was? All right. He was a mythology scholar. And in studying myths across cultures, he found that regardless of the culture, there was a common theme. Every culture had this theme, which he called the hero's journey. And it's everywhere because it's everywhere in our experience. We all have our experience of the hero's journey. And it goes like this. Again, this is Reader's Digest condensed version. The hero's living an average everyday life. They're unremarkable, and they're in a village or in an ancient city. And then they get what Campbell called the call to adventure. We hear it as that still small voice inside that's asking you to listen. And oftentimes the hero doesn't want to listen because isn't it scary sometimes? We're like little kids, like, nah, 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 I can't hear it. You know, we did that as kids. We try to ignore that still small voice. But oftentimes, if we don't listen, life increases the intensity of the call. Some of you have been aware of that, isn't that true? I've got a travel alarm. It starts off really nice, and if you don't shut it off, it gets more and more insistent. And that's until it's like, boom, bam, bam. That's kind of how life is. Well, finally, the hero, somewhere in the early or the later stages of the call, crosses the threshold into the unknown. And they're in the great wilderness, in uncharted territory. And they start to experience big challenges far greater than in their simple little life. But also, fortunately, they come across helpers. And some of those helpers are disguised as very scary creatures, or maybe a witch. But that scary creature or that witch actually has exactly the message they need to hear. I want to pause for a second. One of the things about the hero's journey that makes it so fascinating and exciting is to imagine you are on your hero's journey right now, and somebody might tell you something today that is exactly what you need to hear to take that next step, or to have the courage to do what that still small voice is saying. And I just want to share this example with you because it is so magical and awesome. And actually, it's from Fran. I asked Fran if I could share this. When she was thinking about stepping away from her very successful field in advertising and going into this new world, that, you know, it's always challenging to step into the unknown, especially if this part was working really well. And so Fran was at a McDonald's, and her one of her daughters was playing in that, you know, the thing with all the balls and everything. So Hannah's playing in there. And all of a sudden, Fran turns around, and there's this elderly couple sitting at her table. Like, okay. And almost as if they were just continuing the conversation they had been having, the couple said, yeah, and you know, you never have to worry about the future. Fran's like, oh, hi. And then they begin to talk, and even though they're elderly, they acted like they were like newlyweds. They're just so bubbly and happy. And the wife says something like, yeah, it's so amazing that we always thought we would never be able to afford to retire because he's a pastor, you know, never made much money, never able to save money, getting older, and thought, okay, that's not going to happen. And then one day there's a knock at the door, and there's this guy at the door, and he said he's an attorney for this man who willed his whole estate to us. And this man said that he walked into the church one time, wasn't a member of the church, and my husband's sermon was so inspiring to him, it changed his life. And he wanted to thank him for that. And they're like, isn't that so cool? Isn't that so amazing? And so again, they look at Fran, it's like, yeah, so you never have to worry about the future. Fran's like, thank you. And so have that, you are on your hero's journey, attentiveness to be on the lookout for that person who's right there in that moment to give you the message that you need. And so what happens with the hero, because they're attentive and they pick up on these clues and these cues, they come full circle back to the village or the ancient city, and they have so much more to give because of those challenges and who they became on that journey. And the last part that